Hello and welcome to the final mini episode in my Atlas of Deadly Plants mini series. And in this episode, I'm going to tell you a ghost story, a short personal ghost story of my own, as a little way of rounding off this series of minisodes, and appropriately, it's a little tale for Halloween. It really is short and sweet, and I do hope you enjoy it. So, let's go. On with the story. As a child, I grew up in Amersham, which is a town in the home county of Buckinghamshire. And that just means one of the counties around London. And in fact, my town had a direct link to London via the Metropolitan line, the underground railway that extended out into the countryside, with Amersham at the end of the line. Now, like most places in England, we had our own fair share of ghost stories and spooky hauntings that happened in the area. Indeed, I'm sure there were some hauntings linked to a road called Gore Hill, which was supposedly named after a battle with Danish invaders that produced so much bloodshed that the gore, the blood, literally ran down the hill. I also used to walk my dog in a field that was home to the Martyrs' Memorial. The memorial was actually a large stone obelisk, but the place where the martyring happened was always, in my knowledge, as told by local people, about 100 yards away in the field. An oblong of ground in an arable field that was completely different from the rest of the field. It was an indentation in the ground with just weeds and overgrown grass growing there. Never cultivated, because it was believed that crops wouldn't grow there on the site of this place where people from the town were burned to death for their religious beliefs. And indeed, it's a matter of historical record that some of these people's children were made to light their pyres. And I do remember always feeling a thrill of fear passing that site. And I don't think the dog would ever actually venture onto that patch of ground. It just seemed to be completely inaccessible and sad. But my childhood was unremarkable in many respects. We lived in a cul-de-sac, which to non-British readers just means a road that is closed off at the end. So as a result, it was a really quiet street. You didn't get through traffic because there was nowhere to go. And I grew up as a young child in the 1970s, when there was a period where economic instability meant there were power cuts of several hours every week. And as a small child, I don't think I really understood what was going on. But I do have a couple of memories linked specifically to those power cuts, and they both involve staring out of my bedroom window, which was the only bedroom in the house that was at the front of the house, pointing out onto our quite large front garden and the road beyond. And one memory is a really happy memory, a Christmas memory. As in many parts of the UK, the Rotary Club, a local charitable organisation, would do a Santa's sleigh every year, and they'd dress up a car like Santa's sleigh, and they'd have a Santa sitting in it, and they'd dress up some kind of float as Santa's sleigh, and they'd have a Santa sitting in there, and the volunteers would come along and knock on the door and ask for donations for the charity. And Santa would be there handing out sweets. And I remember this one year, I can't have been more than about 3 or 4, standing at my window, and it was pitch black because obviously it was December in the UK by 4 o'clock. It's dark in the UK at that time. And standing by this window in the dark, and the street was dark because no street lamps were working. We were in a power cut. And suddenly this glow started to form at the end of the road. And slowly it got brighter and brighter. And there was a noise of carols coming down the road. And as I looked, I could see it was Santa's sleigh, all lit up. And there were carols being sung from some hidden speakers somewhere on the float. And I remember the excitement of rushing downstairs to get these boiled sweets. And yeah, so I remember this float coming down the road and then coming to the end of the cul-de-sac near where my house was, turning around and then going back down the street. And as a young child, it was magical. Now, I never believed in Santa, which kind of makes me a bit sad now. But I never believed Santa was real as a child. I guess I was such a pragmatist. And I don't really believe that ghosts are real. However, I love the frisson that a ghost story brings. And as I said yesterday, I have had an experience at that very same window, which is, I think, my only genuinely inexplicable moment. So I'm going to tell you about it, and I'll leave it up to you to decide what actually happened. But it is stamped in my memory to this day. So, reminder, this is the 70s. At night, your bedroom was cold. I remember waking up and there being ice on the window every morning, feathery patterns of ice that were formed, and it would be a while before the house would heat up because you just would have the heating off in the winter time at night. But this night it wasn't frosty, it was pouring with rain. That kind of rainfall that you get, that it just seems like it's going to go on forever. And I must have been asleep lying in my bed, but for reasons I know not, I woke up, got out of bed and went to the window. I don't remember if there were curtains, if I opened the curtains, but I remember looking out. Now, outside the bedroom window was our front garden with a wonderful conifer that would be lit up with white candle lights every Christmas by my dad, who worked in lighting, so he prided himself that the tree looked absolutely gorgeous. But beyond our front garden and the lawn, the street was lit by classic 1970s street lights, and they'd be lit all night time long, apart from when there was a power cut. And there was one of these quite close to our driveway, just to the side, and just next to a silver birch tree, one of my absolute favourite trees. So you can imagine the wonderful arching branches of the silver birch that used to be lit up by this street lamp. On this night, though, it was hammering with rain. And I looked out the window, and there, right under the street light, in the pouring rain, was a man. He was dressed in what I can only describe as Victorian garb, the kind of thing you'd see an extra wearing for a film set in Dickensian London. And he was a large man with those big sideburns that you used to get in Victorian dramas, and some kind of hat, like a sort of a peaked hat, I think it was. But the thing that was most noticeable about this man was he was laughing. He had his mouth wide open. He was a big chap, he had big jowls, and his mouth was wide open, and he was just letting rip, laughing and laughing in the pouring rain. in the middle of the night. And I remember just standing there and watching for I don't know how long. And then at some point I must have gone back to bed. But I'm just so full of questions. Was I suffering from sleep paralysis? Was I just seeing a person who'd been on a heavy night out coming home from the pub who was just having a laugh? Was it just a total dream? Was it just a dream that I dreamt? But it seemed so real. I can remember the raindrops pouring down his face and going into his mouth. Who was this guy? I do hope you enjoyed that tale. It's all true, but as I say, I think I was probably having a nightmare or a sleep. But you can make of it what you will. And if you're interested in hearing more about Gore Hill and the martyrs who were put to death in the reign of Henry VIII for their crime of wanting to read the Bible in English, then I'll put some links in the show notes so you can find out more. That is all for my mini episodes about the Atlas of Deadly Plants. I do hope you've enjoyed them, and if you have, I'd love it if you could leave a comment or a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you've got a copy of my book already, please go and leave a review. It's so important, and I'd love to know what you think of the book. If you're listening to this on Halloween, then you've got till midnight GMT to enter my competition to win one of 5 copies of the book. And I'm hoping to make a couple more episodes of On the Ledge in the next few months. I'm sorry that I can't make one every week like I used to, but I'm keeping the fires burning. The On the Ledge fires are burning. It's a small flame right now, but you never know when we'll be back to a huge bonfire of excitement once more, because you still love indoor plants. I still love indoor plants, and there's always something new to talk about. So thank you for listening, whether you have been here since episode 1 in 2017 or if you're a brand new listener. Thank you for being here, and have a great Halloween. Bye.